whole world has watched and expect that there are things moving forward in China, followed by the 20th National Congress. And when you look at the 20th National Congress, we already expect that Xi Jinping will be on her for the third term, as he aspires to live for lifelong. But when the name of the standing committee was released, people were quite surprised, as expected, that only the loyalists were being chosen. Though Xi Jinping, when he delivered the report to the embassy, he talked about the merit of the cadres, but with the selection of the standing committee, it was not about the merit of the cadres, but rather the loyalty counts. So therefore, this is another thing which is quite unexpected, with the belief that when there is an existence of fractions in China within the political domain, we see that now only Xi Jinping's league is on play. This will create lots of confusions, lots of problems in the future, as if only one ideology, if only one league, if only one prodigy or system stays, and then there is no check and balance. If Xi Jinping says that black is white, everybody will think that the black is white. They will know critical views and observations from his own prodigy, from his own leadership. So therefore, when Xi Jinping remains in absolute power, now there are two things which we need to expect. One thing is whether it will go to the positive direction or whether it will go to the negative directions. There are two directions which you have to cross. While China aspires to be the world leader, I think Xi Jinping's road ahead is not a highway, but rather a bumpy road, because of not just the domestic politics or the domestic issues, but also the international affairs which he need to look into. The unsuccessful policies and the implementations of Belt and Road initiatives, the downfall of economy in China, and the unrest which are being followed all over in China, culminates to a different course where Xi Jinping has to take a stand. So with the new standing committee, with the new leadership on place, I think Xi Jinping has to take a way which is more sustainable. As they said that China is going to a new socialist era with the Chinese characterizations. If Chinese leaders are wise enough, they need to be more benevolent or benign rather than belligerent. And cohesion is not the option for China now, not just in domestic but also in international affairs. So for Xi Jinping, for future, if they want to be the world leader, they need to follow. There is no other options. There is no other alternatives, but they have to follow the international norms and regulations. And that is precisely to follow the rule of law. So if they have to follow the rule of law, they need to stick to the constitution. So therefore, if they really have to follow the constitution, I think there might be a glimmer of chances for the Tibetans to resolve the conflict. But somehow, again, with the unrest, with the grievances coming from all corners inside China, it will be very difficult for Xi Jinping, because the leadership around him are more concerned about stability. So for China, being obsessed with this stability, they've been always belligerent. They use coercive measures. If you look at Tibet, if you look at East Turkistan, there is the establishment of all-encompassing surveillance mechanism which are being built. So that means that they will follow the hardcore policies. The hardline policies may follow when Xi Jinping became the absolute power. But at the same time, since he retains the absolute power, with the little hope which we had over so many years that he will initiate in resolving the Sino-Tibetan conflict. Now the time is ripe for Xi Jinping. If he is willing to resolve this conflict, he must, at this point when he had the absolute majority or the absolute power. That's what I felt. Xi Jinping coming for the third term is unprecedented. After Deng Xiaoping, they made some regulations or systems where only the leaders can stay for 2 terms. So he's going beyond that, putting himself as being a paramount leader. So therefore, he resonates somewhat like Mao Zedong, who controls an absolute power. As I said before, though Xi Jinping got the absolute power, but there are many fractions. Though it was not a traditional fractions which are in place, I strongly felt that the new fractions might emerge after he became the General Secretary for the third term. Why? Because we felt that he, while coming into this position, has negated the aspirations of many leaders, young leaders, who aspires to become a leader. So he, in a way, was objection and obstruction to their leadership. So therefore, they might have some difficulties, they might have some problems within the system. That is to see in the future. But somehow, what we sense is Xi Jinping is hunger for power. He wants to remain in power for long. So simply, why now? Why? We felt that Xi Jinping do not have any confidence in his prodigy. Forget about other fractions, leaders from other fractions. So therefore, he don't have any confidence in anybody except himself. And that is a very risky game for China. So we need to see in the future how Xi Jinping is going to control China. But with respect to China's rise and China's dream and rejuvenation of China, China's longing to be the number one and the world power, but somehow not having a check and balance in the leadership will be an Achilles heel for China's growth in the long run. Still, it remains as a speculation because nobody knows what's going on. Only the world media has covered that episode. And it's a shameful episode somehow in the Chinese politics. And somehow it makes this real sense of the power struggle within the Chinese topmost leaders. And it shows the fractions still exist, no matter how Xi Jinping remains in power. So therefore, even though there are fractions, or dominant fractions from Shanghai, from Youth League, and Xi Jinping's prodigy, whatever it is so, as I said before, with Xi Jinping coming as an absolute power, I fear that they will create a new paradigm of fractions among the leaders. That is to see in the future what it implies for. And Hu Jidao's going away from the sessions has become a sensational news all over the world, and it never happened before. Though China gives an excuse of medical ground, but it was not as it was supposed to be. So it was purely on the political struggle which they talked about. So that's an unfortunate of a leader being treated or humiliated in front of the international communities. But people used to say that his time will come. His time will also come. So therefore, we never know. You cannot be immortal all the time. You cannot be indispensable all the time. One day he has to leave. So my message, I think, here is Xi Jinping having an absolute power, not just about China dream, not just about rejuvenation of China, but Xi Jinping can create a legacy by fulfilling the aspirations of all the Chinese people, and not only the Chinese people, but also the Tibetan, Uyghurs, and all repressed people who are longing for freedom. Even for Xi Jinping also, it will be a bumpy road. Even for Tibet also, it will be a difficult course while looking at the composition of the leaders. So it's quite amazing to see that one time the Tibetans used to call Hu Jintao as the butcher of Tibet. And his prodigies like Wang Yang and others were liked. But now when they were out of the power, everybody says that they are more liberal. So we do not understand how one time a bourgeois became a liberal. Maybe Xi Jinping also can make the history of being more bourgeoist than Hu Jintao. So it's all up to Xi Jinping now. As I said before in one of the interviews, I said it's in the hand of now Xi Jinping. Last time, during the so-called 70th anniversary of the liberation, as they said, Xi Jinping visited Lhasa. Before that, he visited northeastern Tibet. And at that time, I recall by saying that he should visit Kham. Then he visited all the 3 traditional provinces of Tibet. That makes him in a better position to resolve the Tibetan conflict. So therefore, there is both the sides now. Xi Jinping either has to choose the good one or the bad one, and the time will tell.